I was mostly kidding, though a part of me wondered if I was onto something. If it was a desire to protect that caused the werewolves to resurface, then I couldn't imagine a stronger pull than the desire to protect Bella. She may not have been the initial cause, but if she was in danger for a single moment, even I couldn't fault Jacob for protecting her by any means necessary. I never thought I'd find myself grateful for the emergence of a werewolf, but he did save her life, and I knew for that I would be forever in his debt. "But I didn't bring them back," Bella said. The fierceness in her voice startled me. Her tone was strained, more accusing. "Don't you know?" "Know what?" "My bad luck had nothing to do with it. The werewolves came back because the vampires did. Jacob told me that your family being here set things in motion. I thought you'd already knew." My feelings of gratitude towards Jacob were quickly replaced with anger as I realized he had crossed yet another line. How dare he speak of things he knew nothing about? He wasn't there in the beginning, and there's only so much hearing of stories can teach someone. Our bond was strong as long as the rules were followed. Today, as it had always been, the treaty was firmly in place. None of my family had given the Quileutes any reason to doubt us. We had been living in Forks for quite some time without any appearance of the wolves, and I resented his assumption that we were the cause of their return. "Is that what they think?" I asked, still bewildered. Perhaps the presence of the nomads and their careless disregard for human life, but not us. "Edward, look at the facts. 70 years ago you came here and the werewolves showed up. You come back now and the werewolves show up again. Do you think that's a coincidence?" I still wasn't convinced. We had done nothing to provoke them. Still, I knew Carlyle, always the voice of reason, would want to hear about it. "Carlyle will be very interested in that theory," I said as calmly as I could manage. "Theory?" she repeated, obviously still irritated with me. I didn't know much about the process, nor had I ever been particularly interested, but the Black's theory did make me wonder how long the gene would take to manifest itself. Could it really be that things had been set into motion when my family arrived, but we didn't see the effects until much later? The one thing I still couldn't reconcile, however, is why they had turned up the precise moment we'd left. If we truly were the cause, wouldn't our leaving have stopped them from completing the transmutation, or was it already too late by that point? "Interesting, but not exactly relevant," I muttered, mostly to myself. Then turning to Bella, who, as it turns out, was just as good at distracting me as I was at distracting her, I told her bluntly, "The situation remains the same." Bella watched me for a moment, and I could almost see the wheels in her head turning. She thought I was overreacting, and she was desperate to try to make me see reason. Slowly, she stood up and walked over to me. My arms immediately opened and beckoned her closer. I hated it when she and I didn't see eye to eye, and hated even more when we let it get us both worked up. As she sat herself down in my lap and curled up into my embrace, I knew that both of us were tired of going around in circles. We didn't want to argue anymore, but we were both still trying to make each other understand our line of thinking. "Please just listen for a minute," she pleaded, looking up at me from under her lashes. "This is so much more important than just some whim to drop in on an old friend. Jacob is in pain. I can't not try to help him. I can't give up on him now, when he needs me. Just because he's not human all the time. Well, he was there for me when I was not so human myself. You don't know what it was like." I felt every inch of my body tense. Bella so rarely spoke of those months of my absence. She knew what it did to me. However, she could never know the full extent of it. She didn't realize that every time she spoke the words, my mind flashed to all the images I had seen through the eyes of others. Her teachers would recall the dead expression she wore for so many months. Her friends would remember the way she barely spoke. It was the one time I was grateful I couldn't hear Charlie as clear as the rest. I couldn't imagine what I would see if I was granted full access to his mind. "If Jacob hadn't helped me," she continued, "I'm not sure what you would have come home to. I owe him better than this, Edward." My eyes snapped shut as I tried to block out the images that were assaulting me. I shuddered to think what I would see if I were to come face to face with Jacob. No doubt he had seen her at her worst. "I'll never forgive myself for leaving you," I said, my voice strained with anguish. Not if I live 100,000 years. In the midst of my misery, I was graciously given the gentle reprieve of Bella's touch. I didn't deserve it. Her fingers traced my cheek, and I sighed into her warmth, my eyes opening and locking with her gaze. "You were just trying to do the right thing," she said kindly, "and I'm sure it would have worked out with anyone less mental than me. Besides, you're here now. That's the part that matters." She said the words so often, yet I still couldn't believe them. If I had never left, you wouldn't feel the need to go risk your life to comfort a dog. She seemed taken aback for a moment, and I felt instantly guilty for having once again said something to offend her. I tried to soften my tone, but the severity of the situation would not allow it to come out as carefully as I wanted. I don't know how to phrase this properly. It's going to sound cruel, I suppose, but I've come too close to losing you in the past. I know what it feels like to think I have, and I'm not going to tolerate anything dangerous. "You have to trust me on this. I'll be fine." No, my mind was screaming at me. This wasn't about trusting her. She didn't know what she was walking into. I can't leave this up to chance. Please don't go where I can't follow. I can't know you're okay unless I'm with you. "Please, Bella," I begged, unable to form the rest of the words, and trying to block out the voice telling me my pleading wouldn't do any good. "Please what?" she asked, exasperated. "Please for me. Please make a conscious effort to keep yourself safe. I'll do everything I can, but I would appreciate a little help." "I'll work on it," she muttered, and it pained me that she seemed to be ignoring my desperation. Didn't she understand by now she meant everything to me? "Do you really have any idea how important you are to me? Any concept at all of how much I love you?" I pulled her close, as tightly as I could without hurting her, and rested my chin on her head, breathing her in like it was my last breath. When she kissed my neck, the warmth radiated through my entire body, and it both soothed and made me ache. I needed her, safe, forever. "I know how much I love you," she said softly. Her breathing washed over me, creating another cascade of warmth. "You compare one small tree to the entire forest." "Impossible." Though her voice was still doubtful, I could feel her heart beat a little faster, and she seemed to nuzzle closer to me. I would never stop trying to convince her that she was my world. With a quick kiss on her head, I repeated the words I knew wouldn't get us any closer to a solution. "No werewolves." "I'm not going to go along with that. I have to see Jacob." "Then I'll have to stop you." "We'll see about that. He's still my friend." There we sat, at yet another impasse. My beautiful, stubborn girl, drawn to danger at every turn, best friends with a werewolf, and in love with a vampire. Though I'd never condone it, or speak the words out loud, I was starting to wonder if maybe she was right. Immortality was the only way to keep her safe.